Live. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful day. It's Friday, April 8th, 2022. This week, we're talking about WWDC because it finally got announced. The struggle of the AirPods 3 because they might not be doing as well as Apple had hoped. Apple Classical, which might be a new streaming service coming from Apple, and much more because this is the iMore show. I am your host, Luke Filipowicz, and iMore writer. Joined with me, as always, is our co-host, Karen Freeman, iMore contributor. How you doing, Karen?
Hello.
And our news editor at iMore, Stephen Warwick. Thanks for joining us, Stephen. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. I liked how you said joined with me, as like you and Karen have got married since the last time we released the show. That was really funny. I know you didn't mean it, but it just made me giggle.
Actually, hilarious little insight. So my partner's name, my partner in real life is also named Karen. And I accidentally texted Karen, a very silly message about how I was going on a walk. Because I was letting my partner know I was going on a walk because she was out and she was going to come back when I was going to be gone. And I accidentally sent it to this Karen. So they're
yeah, I'm like, oh, you're all dressed for a walk. That's nice. Okay.
Yeah. And then I was like, whoops. Hilariously enough, it's because I used Siri and I didn't
specify which.
I didn't specify which Karen, and I guess the last person I had texted, because I think that was maybe on a Friday too. It might have been last Friday. Yeah. So I think the last person I had texted was this Karen. So I think it picked it up. So now I made sure that Siri knows that my Karen is my girlfriend, so I can just say girlfriend instead of Karen, and we shouldn't have that issue again.
Yeah, that text was okay, but there may be some others I don't want. So.
Yeah, I mean, that was Karen was laughing. My partner was laughing a lot, and she was just like, "God, I'm glad you didn't send anything weird or personal." And I was like, "Yeah, no doubt." That would have been real awkward around the office, that's for sure. Speaking of awkward around the office, that's not an actual segue, but I'm going to try and use it anyways. WWDC finally got announced after what was a little bit of a awkward moment where we were like, "Where is it?" Because normally they're kind of around the end of March that they sort of announced it. I mean, obviously we knew WWDC was happening, so it wasn't like a big deal. But it was a little later this year. It did finally get announced this week, though. It is going to be June 6th through 10th, which is about the same time they usually do it, pretty early in June. And it's mostly going to be, I mean, okay. So it is, they say it's going to be all online, but then there's also a bit of an in-person component.
Yeah, they advertise it, the press release, the keynote, the headline was all online WWDC, so third year in a row. But then when you get through it, there is a very small component kind of in person. So it's a special day, Apple says, for developers and students at Apple Park. And the strange thing about it, I think, is that it sounds like they're just going to watch a screening of the online keynote that everybody will get to see. So people will be at Apple Park, but it's not for an in-person. I assume there will be some, rubbing of shoulders, developer networking, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the main event keynote, it sounds like there won't be like a special in-person keynote that will be broadcast or that only those people will get to see. It sounds like more of a, hey, come to Apple Park and there will be a screening of the overall online keynote that everyone will get to see. But yeah, mostly, almost all online again. So yeah, third year in a row. And I would assume, given how much work and effort goes into WWDC and money, I'm sure it's been reported that Apple spends about $55 million putting WWDC on, like a normal WWDC on and not a pandemic year. I assume they had to make that decision quite a while ago. And I assume, given how fast the situation everywhere and how fluid everything is with regards to COVID and travel, local restrictions, they had to make that decision quite a long time ago.
Yeah, my first thought when I heard that was, well, what's the point of bringing people in if they're just going to be watching it on a screen just like everybody else? But the more I think about it, the more I think it is a really good networking opportunity. I think about the younger generation, the kids who are in school now or just getting out of school, and they've missed out on so much of the networking and connections that's so important for future employment and opportunities. So I think whether Apple does something very specifically very exciting for them, or they just have the opportunity to be together, I think I don't know. I think it would, if I was a kid, a young person in that situation, I would try to go if I could.
Yeah, it's still a really cool opportunity. And Karen, you're totally right. We interviewed developer Steve Trotton Smith the first year WWDC was cancelled and went to an online format. And what he talked about was, as much as it was necessary and in the current climate, it seemed like the right decision. It was a huge loss because the best thing about WWDC was not necessarily, the keynotes and stuff like that, but getting to meet other developers, face-to-face time with Apple engineers and things like that. So there's also Apple will be doing the Swift student challenge rather as well. So I'm guessing some of the students who kind of get to go will also get to be involved in that and stuff, which is nice. So yeah, WWDC 8 weeks, 6-7 weeks, something, 2 months ish.
Yeah, it's definitely
it's just about 2 months.
It's definitely been a dream of mine to actually attend an Apple event in person. And I'm still hoping, eventually, hopefully, if I'm here long enough, I'll be able to make that work. Obviously, for very obvious reasons, recently I wouldn't have wanted to go anyways, even if they were live. But yeah, I think Craig in the comment was saying that it's such a small part that he can't see this drawing developers that aren't already in sort of like the area, like in Cupertino and whatnot. And that might be true. It's probably going to be a lot harder to justify traveling across the country to go watch a screen that you could watch at your house.
But
I think that networking part is, we've missed it. We have missed it. The community has missed it for going on, essentially 2 to 3 years now. So, I think it sucks. I think Apple, it's a bit of a catch-22 because we've talked about this before, but from a consumer perspective, the online events are so slick and so fast and so streamlined that they're kind of nice to consume. I kind of like them that way because I feel
it's going to be tough to go back to a slow, boring keynote event.
Yeah,
we've sort of gotten used to this beautifully packaged.
Yeah, but the hands-on experience that they usually get with new products and stuff after they announce new products or whatever is very valuable, and it's been valuable
that
to us
to come back
to us as well in the past, right? You get a hands-on look and things like that. It lets us really know more about the devices before they're shipped out, which is always good because then we can tell all of you what's good about it, what we've seen, what the new features are. So it's definitely a catch-22 because I kind of like them better when they're streamed and kind of a nice post-produced or pre-produced package. But I obviously understand that there's a lot of good that comes out of having hands-on time and having face-to-face time. So it is a little sad to see that WWDC is sticking with the all digital format. Although one thing I want to say about that, and we can get into this if you think that was the right call or not, but this decision would have been made many months ago.
Yeah.
And many months ago, COVID looked very different. Omicron at its peak and things like that. So I feel like this decision was probably made a long time ago. And then at a certain point, there's no going back, right? Because there's lots of
definitely just this decision was made long ago. But I also think they might be testing the waters for doing hybrid events going forward, even after, if there is ever an after COVID. I'm not convinced there will be, but even if there is sometime in the future when people feel safe going to large events again, I wonder if Apple will continue to do a pre-packaged keynote event and just add back in the other stuff, like bring press back and bring the hands-on room and all of that stuff back, but continue to do the keynotes in the digital format. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, it did seem kind of inevitable, and Karen, like you said, I think it's also the safe bet because it's much easier to, and it also looks a lot better to hold a safer online event in, maybe we could have done something in person than to do an in-person event that might be, a complete disaster. And certainly I think it was not that long ago, that we had CES, which, turned into a bit of a a bit of a fiasco with lots of companies pulling out last minute, and there were lots of very
Fire
empty.
Festival.
Yeah, so basically, so I think Apple. I mean, Apple would probably be a cut above in terms of like actually organizing any sort of event, but it's definitely the safe option. And yeah, I think you're right. It's interesting that they're doing this kind of hybrid possible sort of setup for maybe looking ahead. I think it's WWDC is quite unique in that it is primarily, by name, a developers conference and primarily a software based conference. So I think we probably lose out the least as consumers and onlookers, not as developers, with an online WWDC as opposed to an all online iPhone or Mac event or something like that. Or if you think, in the future, if Apple, is rumored to be working on a VR or an AR headset or a car maybe one day, those types of event without the in-person element, I think would really struggle. And I wouldn't be surprised if it came out one day that Apple had held off on something because it wanted to get products in the hands of the press on release day, on launch day, that it just isn't able to do at the time. It's an interesting question in the comments to follow that up that says, would you guys rather go to WWDC or the big event in the fall? And I think for those reasons, hardware versus software, it would have to be the fall event for me, especially getting a chance to go hands-on with a new iPhone or the Apple Watch or something like that. We might get some hardware at WWDC. It's not unheard of. I don't think there was any last year, but there's always rumors that Apple might, drop something. But like I said, primarily software, primarily developer focused. So I think in terms of the value of being able to go in person, the actual product hardware events, I think are a much kind of stronger pull for that sort of thing. What do you guys think? WWDC or fall event? You guys agree?
Fall event, 100%.
Yeah.
See, and I'm torn. It's like the person inside of me, the part of me that loves shiny new things, would love to go to a fall event because shiny new things. But I like learning a lot, and I feel like WWDC I would learn a lot if I actually went. And I think I I'm not going to become a developer because I'm not. It's not going I'm going to learn that much. But I think I would learn a lot more about maybe some of the inner workings and some of the struggles that developers have, and I think that would be interesting. I think that would really kind of expand my mind in a way that I don't currently. And so I would love to go to WWDC. I think push comes to shove, I'd probably pick the fall event because once again, shiny new things. But I feel like WWDC, a lot of interesting news comes out of WWDC. And I know that it isn't maybe as exciting for the general populace as a new iPhone, but all the new, your iPhone's really only as good as the software that it runs. So software is a huge part of what Apple does and always has been. And I just love, I love learning the new software. And I think the fact that they usually release kind of the first developer betas, which a lot of us at iMore tend to take advantage of to sort of see what's new, what's happening. And yes, we've had comments that sometimes they are buggy, but they are in beta for a reason. Buggy.
Sometimes?
Okay, lots of times there's usually bugs. Typically they get, most of the big ones definitely get ironed out before the public releases, typically in the fall. But yeah, going to WWDC would be great. I hope that whoever decides to go, whether you're just going to because you just want to go see the big event the event in a cool theater at Apple Park, that sounds awesome. Or if you are hoping to get some networking done, or you're a student and it's a good opportunity for you, definitely by all means, if you feel comfortable and you want to go, go for it. I think Apple will do its best to, even though it's not the same as before, to make it interesting, and I'm sure they'll welcome you with open arms. So I hope everybody who goes has a great time, and everybody who's just like us, who's watching from their house or their work or wherever, is in for lots of updates about what's coming to the software. But Steven's right. WWDC, while it is primarily software, they do take the time to launch products fairly frequently. In the last few years, we've seen products launch. I don't think we have any staggering rumors right now that are really circulating about an imminent launch, except for perhaps because this has been sticking around for a while, but no real date has been attached to it. But they have been talking about, a reformed MacBook Air for a while, with potentially either an M2 or maybe an upgraded M1 chip that has all these kind of fancy colors and potentially different screen sizes. So I that would be interesting. I think they've launched. I think, if I'm correct, I think they've even launched a MacBook Air before at WWDC, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'm literally looking this up because I was really curious as to how this was. I think certainly the when the MacBook first went Retina in 2012, that was a WWDC launch.
Yeah.
The 2019 Mac Pro.
Oh, okay. I think that's the one I was thinking about. Yeah.
And I think that was the last hardware, because that was also the last in-person WWDC. And before that, 2017, the iMac Pro, I believe, are there. So, and that's the thing, WWDC, not only for developers, it can also be a bit more of a, a pro. I don't want to separate those, pro and consumer, but a slightly more pro-focused event, where there's so we're maybe more likely to get a higher powered MacBook Pro or the new Mac Pro that Apple teased us in the last event or something like that, as opposed to a MacBook Air or something like that. It's all up in the air, I guess. But I would love to see some hardware. It's always nice. I'm much less fussy about the software in general. I tend to steer clear of the betas and stuff. So new hardware for me always kind of makes WWDC just that little bit more exciting.
Yeah, I'd be interested if they're going to launch something this year. Like you said, 2019 was the last time, and that was kind of, pre-pandemic and pre everything going online. So perhaps they have realized that, maybe that's been a reason they don't want to, because they've already launched enough products without people being able to have their hands on them right away. Maybe they just don't want to add to that. But also maybe their production schedules have just also been definitely rearranged, I would say, since COVID has definitely kind of made production of pretty much most things somewhat hard. Particularly chips and stuff are still kind of hard to source, and some of the materials you need to make all the devices that they need. So perhaps maybe it's just a logistics thing. I guess we'll never really know for sure. Let me bring this to you guys. What software are you most looking forward to going into WWDC? Like which one do you most want to hear updates about, and why?
Karen, you first. I'm still thinking.
I would like to see maps be improved. My husband and I have this ongoing sort of argument. He is team Google Maps and I am team Apple Maps. And there will be times when we are going places where Google Maps just completely screws everything up and I get to have a little laugh. But there are other times when Apple Maps completely screws everything up and he gets to have a little laugh. So I would like Apple Maps to just work better. I don't mean it needs more fancy features. I just mean it needs to work better. Like, it needs to not be wrong. Like, it's just wrong sometimes. So I would like to see some improvements there. And it would also be nice to have features where, like, you can add, let's say you're going on a car trip or something, you can add, let's say you want to add dinner, like you can add a restaurant, but you can't add a specific restaurant. Like, I got off an airplane late at night. It was freezing cold. I had just come from a warm climate. I was coming home to a cold climate, and I just wanted a freaking bowl of soup. And I specifically was driving home from the airport looking for a Panera because I know I love their soup. And I couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't figure out a way to do it. I was like searching Paneras, but they just were like taking me all over the place. And I was like, I just want a Panera that's on the way home. And it shouldn't be so difficult to do.
I always eat dinner.
That's what I would like to see.
I always eat dinner right after the show, and you've really put me in the mood for like some soup and just some bread. I have to like change my plans. That's and that's for iPhone. I take it you're navigating when you're doing Apple Maps. Yeah, cool. For me, the thing that I'm most excited about, it sounds daft, but TV OS and the Apple TV, we probably use as much, if not more, than, I use Mac OS and iPad OS and the iPhone, but they're just sort of routine. Whereas because you sit down to watch the TV, the TV OS is like a bit of an event. So I'd love to see, it's not even new features. I just love, well, one is a new feature, but things I'd love to see fixed. Apple introduced eARC audio with the last Apple TV, the 4K one, which if you don't know, we have the Apple TV and 2 HomePods. It's very easy to use those as a home cinema system. But if you have cable TV or an Xbox or a PlayStation, something like that, you can use eARC to broadcast the audio from an alternative source, like your cable box or a Blu-ray player, through your Apple TV and then out to your HomePods. So you use your HomePods with your Apple TV, but also all of your other goodies. So you've got one unified home audio system, but it's still in beta and it breaks all the time. It always deactivates itself. You always have to go in and reactivate it and then activate it. I'd love Apple to just fix that. And the other, it sounds really weird. The Apple TV screensavers, I really want better control over which screensavers, because right now there are 4 categories. I want to say like landscapes, cities, water, and I can't remember what the 4th one is. It'll come to me. But you basically you can say either yes or no to like one of those 4 categories. Whereas I would love to be able to just see all of the screensavers individually and pick which ones I want to see and cycle through them and have more control over which ones download, because sometimes Apple releases new screensavers and you don't see them on the TV for like 6 months. We've just got I live in Scotland. Apple introduced a Scotland screensaver like last year. We've been waiting like 5 or 6 months for it to appear, and then it finally appeared. And I would love to just have the option, if I could control it through like the iPhone or something, to download and manage and just like checkbox each one of those, rather than just turn off all the water or all the landscapes or all the cities or stuff like that. So anything, I love those specific things, but then anything else kind of broadly related to improving tvOS, I will be all for. Fast switching AirPods, that's the other thing I want, because switching AirPods to your Apple TV is also still a little bit of a faff, and it doesn't always work. And then sometimes you switch back to your phone and you put them in, and then the TV audio starts playing into your ears as you leave the house, and it's just a whole thing. So those tvOS, that's what I'm most excited for, and that's what I want fixed.
Nice. Before I tell you what I'm looking forward to most, we're going to have a little message from one of our sponsors. We have a new sponsor today, and support for the iMore show is brought to you by Manscaped. That's right. The company who's the best in men's below the waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision engineered tools for, well, your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you: 20% off and worldwide shipping with the code iMore at manscaped.com. That's a lot of body hair that you can get rid of, if my math is right. In the Performance Package, you will get the Lawnmower 4.0, which is their best trimmer yet. It has their advanced skin-safe technology, and it's also waterproof, meaning you can use it in the shower so you don't have to get hair all over your bathroom. And we all know, men, your partners hate when you do that, because my partner hates when I do that. So make sure that you're trimming up where you need to with the Lawnmower 4.0. Their deodorant that you can use around your nether regions smells very nice, and it will also help you prevent chafing, which can be very important. So remember, you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code iMore at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com if you use the code iMore. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped. And thank you, Manscaped, for sponsoring this episode. Jumping from that fun, cheeky ad right into what WWDC I'm most excited for. My answer has changed since, if you would have asked me this a few weeks ago, before the iPad Air 5 came out, I probably would have said Apple Watch is what I am more curious about. But now that I have an iPad that has an M1 inside of it, just brimming with power, that is somewhat not completely usable in its current form of iPad OS, I do really want to see what iPad OS might bring for iPad users, because there's just so much more that I think iPad OS can do. And I think Apple is realizing that. And I think the potential of their own, having their own chips and their, I mean, they've been making their own mobile chips for quite a while, but now that they have, this powerful M1 series, and which will eventually probably become an M2 series, I think they're just kind of peeking through the window right now of what's possible. I currently have two iPads. I have the iPad 9th generation, just the base iPad, which is mostly kind of for content and things, but I've liked it and used it because I haven't necessarily found like that I really needed to upgrade. But the iPad Air 5 looks so cool that I decided to get one. And it really has kind of made me realize that, the multitasking and things like that definitely need to be a little tweaked, I think, to be a little better. It would be cool if iPadOS had some sort of like proper like windowing system, sort of like macOS. I want to stress that I don't want macOS and iPadOS to become the same thing. I think they do serve two different audiences, and I think that there's a reason for them to be separate. But I think that, they can learn from macOS a little bit and maybe take some of the features to make it feel a little more desktop-y while still retaining its kind of mobile and portability roots. But I think like multitasking, which like works decently well as it's implemented now, but there's just so much more that it could do. And there's so much power in the M1 chip that the iPad Pro and the iPad Air, now the iPad Air 5, is like not using to its fullest potential. So I think that's really exciting to me, is to sort of see like, will they break iPadOS out even more? And they've done some cool things. Like, I don't know if anyone's ever tried to use it, but if you use like universal control, that's super awesome. Like, to just be able to put your to be able to control your iPad like just alongside your Mac with like no lag time in between it's really starting to become where like, maybe you don't need another giant monitor. Maybe you have an 11-inch iPad that's sitting on your desk, and that's, become your portable workstation, but also like a second monitor with stuff like Sidecar, or, you're just able to seamlessly go back and forth between your Mac and your iPad using, the Magic Mouse or the Magic Keyboard or whatever you have set up. So I think they're getting there, and I think they're slowly clawing back kind of the curtain and seeing what's behind the M1 when it comes to iPad performance. So I think that's probably the one that I'm most curious about. I think specifically I would like to hear, or I'm excited and hoping that they'll talk a lot about like, multitasking features and like multi-app support. Like, I would actually love if instead of just a split screen, you could actually have like maybe 4 different apps in the corners. I know that would be small, and that's not useful for everybody, but I think like there's been some times where it's like I'm watching a YouTube video, I'm writing an article, and something pops in my mind, and I want to like send a tweet, and it's like, I wish Twitter was just like in the corner, and I could just like hit a little button, type my tweet, and just like go back and not even have to, exit the split screen and all that stuff. So I think like there's some interesting uses there to see if you can maybe get more than just like 2 apps kind of going, especially since the screens are definitely, big enough, depending on what apps you're talking about using, that can sort of take advantage of a smaller space. So, and it might make like, heck, this is probably really dreaming in the sky, but like, perhaps if Apple really pushed this and really developed this more, and they kind of had these, let's just say for my dream's sake, we have these 4 corners that your apps can sort of be in on the screen. Perhaps developers take note of that, realize people are using it, and they actually design a specific thing for, split screen view, essentially. And then that would be really cool if if I can load up Twitter normally and it's just Twitter, but then if I load it up in split screen, it's like specifically like the new tweet box or something like that.
Yeah, rather than just like a resized big app. It's an actual, almost like kind of halfway between a widget and an app, sort of like that's really cool.
That would be really cool. I think that's kind of like a dream of mine, but I just feel like there's a lot more that can be done if Apple opens up iPadOS a little bit and sort of experiments with it, and maybe takes some of the best parts of macOS and kind of incorporates them in a way.
I think
I'm excited about iPad OS for sure.
I think it's quite a common complaint that iPad OS, in terms of what the software offers you, what the hardware can do, is probably the biggest gap across the ecosystem. I've always really, I don't like the iPad OS, like the way it works and stuff, I've always really kind of got along with. But I think for me, like if I had the M1 iPad Air or one of the iPad Pros, I would just love to see more powerful apps, like pro apps. We heard the rumor that pro apps was happening 1, 2, maybe 3 years ago. So Final Cut Pro or Main Stage or Logic Pro on the iPad, just more powerful apps that can do more things for music production or filmmaking or things like that. Just more apps that require the raw processing power that the iPads, like a lot of the top end iPads now have. I would love to see. I'm not so fussy about the way the operating system works as a whole, but once you open an app, I would love to see it be able to do more. Because like if you've got the M1 iPad, if you're just using that for Twitter or to surf like your emails, like you're not even tapping like 5% of probably what that M1 chip can do. So I don't mind so much how the apps and the operating system kind of interact with each other. Or once you get into an app, I would love to see more gaming as well, just more use of the kind of the raw processing power the iPad has.
Yeah, you guys
sure.
bring up some great points.
And, I actually mentioned that in my review too. Whereas, if you're doing basic stuff,
yeah. So
if you're doing the basic stuff, Karen, we're losing you a little bit. You're a little choppy at the moment.
Yeah, well, because I keep stopping because somebody else is talking.
Karen froze.
So Craig brings up.
She's good on mine.
Me?
Keep going, Karen. You're okay.
Okay, I'll keep talking. So Craig in the comments mentioned that he brought up a good point that he would just like to see all of the Apple devices work together better. In theory, they should all work together very smoothly, but in practical life, it doesn't always work out that way. So Rob also in the comments mentioned that he's having trouble with his iMessage not syncing properly with between his iPad and his iPhone. My husband has a persistent problem with that. Half the time when I text him, it goes to his iPad instead of his iPhone. So he's like, he'll be out and he'll be like, well, I didn't get your text. And I'm like, but I texted you. Excuse me. And he's been to Apple, he's been to the tech people at his job, and nobody can fix it. So
yeah, I think that
it would be good if Apple could work on that.
A more general thing that I would add on top of all of the, I'd like iPad OS or Mac OS to do this is just more, what's the word? Just like Apple to execute the things it actually doing. Because Luke, you sort of joked about the betas being, buggy and stuff like that. And so, don't install them if you don't have to. But even the regular software, I never use a beta, so I'm exclusively on public releases, and I've never found, certainly this year, and it feels like it gets worse kind of every year, there to be a smooth experience, and it feels like it never all flows. There's always something that isn't quite what, whether it's like Karen said, like the iMessage synchronization, stuff like that, notifications. Like, do you remember? I mean, maybe not for an iOS 15, but do you remember in iOS 14 we went for like a year where your phone just wouldn't give you notifications for text messages, and it was, I think it was like a known issue that thousands of people had, and Apple was like, it's a carrier problem, but it wasn't a carrier problem, and nobody ever really. So I would just love a year of software that is good and is better, but just works. Like, I think that is the big. I assume part of the challenge of COVID and lots of engineers being displaced and working from home remotely or hybrid, and maybe that lack of communication has impacted the development of the software and the quality of the software. But overall, I've been quite underwhelmed and I think disappointed, not with the features and the ambition, but just like could we just have all of it work? That would be, and yeah, Karen, like you're saying, all of it work together as well, because I think the operating systems as a whole are much more susceptible to not working or not functioning when they are like intersecting and like universal control and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Steven saying in the comments that the old motto of "it just works," but Steven, as you were saying, like to Steven saying similar things. Uh, I It's weird because sometimes that motto is perfect. Like something like universal control, I've been really impressed with of how it finally got implemented, and it took a while for them to actually fully get it up and running and finally into the public release. Like they took their time with it, you could tell, because there were definitely issues with it in beta, and then it wasn't in the beta for a while, and it kind of came in and out. But now that I've tried it and I've used it, it's pretty spectacular, and it does have that "it just works" feeling. And I agree with both of you that like it would be nice if that was a more broad statement that we could use all the time, that Apple likes us to use all the time, because it is true. Things like the, having everything connected to your iCloud account and is great for sharing and making sure you have everything across your devices, but it does make messaging a little wonky sometimes if you have all those devices on. Which, Rob, you were asking the content for advice. You said you've tried turning off iMessage and on and off. I would say one thing you could try is logging in and out of your iCloud account on your phone and your iPad. Sometimes I find that sort of helps reset sort of the like the wonkiness that iCloud can provide. I wish I had better advice for you. If you're updated to all the latest versions, which it sounds like you are, it might just be the messages being a bit weird, which it can be. I think we've all experienced that.
Yeah.
That I would say like this isn't like, I wish I had a better answer for you. My other answer would just be like, when you're not using your iPad and you want to make sure things go to your iPhone, like turn off your iPad. I know that's not like the amazing solution that you want, but it will, prevent messages from going to the iPad because it's off, because it's, it's not on. So I wish I had a better answer for you, but that is a sticking point that we've just been talking about, how the messages tend to kind of go all over the place, especially when you have them, hooked. And I have trouble getting messages on my Mac sometimes. Like I want to answer them on my Mac and I see that they come to my phone and I'm like, okay, my phone's like across the room right now. I'll just answer it on my Mac when I get it. And I'll wait for like 10, 15 minutes and it still hasn't showed up on my Mac. So it's
contacts as well. I have a problem with that. Sometimes you get a message, you see the message on your phone, and then you see it on your Mac.
Yeah.
And on your phone is, my wife's name, but on the Mac it's just her phone number, and I can know it by looking at it. But I like who it is. Like, why can't you show me it? And the other thing as well is,
to me all the time. And you probably know your wife's number, but there are a lot of numbers I don't know, even though I know the person. And so I don't know who's texting me on my Mac, and it's ridiculous.
That and the other thing I would love to see, not made better, but improved in its current state, I guess, would be Siri and any sort of all of the home automation Siri requests kind of thing. I'd love to see more on-device Siri. I know we got some of that last year, and so there are things you can do with Siri even if you're not connected to the internet. I would love to see even more of that, even like more local, working with HomePods and things like that, because I still have a bunch of problems with Siri. I'll ask for a playlist that I know is in my Apple Music library because I can AirPlay it to my HomePod, or I can hand it off with the I've forgotten what the when you I've totally brain fired. When you put your phone on the HomePod, what is that? Yeah, it's the handoff feature.
Yeah, it's just called handoff. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's why I couldn't think of it. Because I already said it. Like that sort of thing. But when I asked for that playlist by Siri, it's like, what? This isn't in your library. And I'm like, well, it is, because I'm looking at it. Like I can AirPlay it. I can hand it off. But so I think just more reliability and better functionality, as well as exciting new features and stuff like that, would be very, very welcome.
Yeah. My calendar has trouble syncing between devices too, which is unfortunate because I really depend on my calendar to get places on time.
That's another common one I find. And once again, we actually have an article on that, on how to fix calendar syncing issues. And it's not perfect. It's just kind of troubleshooting tips that can help. I would definitely say if you're having any wonkiness with your iCloud ever, like signing out of your device, I know it's annoying, but signing out and signing in, I have had some success with that. Sometimes I have to do it every couple months to sort of like kind of reshock the systems, I suppose. But I have had success with that. So that would be my kind of like ultimate advice for anyone maybe experiencing stuff like this. Give that a try and see how that works for you. We've talked a lot about WWDC. We have a few other things we want to cover, but before we do that, we have some more friends that I'm going to let Karen tell you about.
Yes. We all hate passwords and are frustrated when we cannot remember a password, and so we tend to reuse them. In today's world where everything is digital, this is akin to leaving your home and car unlocked. We all know we need to do a better job with our passwords. The time to do it is now. Get a password manager now. Get the best, get Keeper. Start your free trial at www.get-keeper.com. Why Keeper? Securely create, share, and manage passwords from family, friends, and colleagues. Highly rated, named PC Mag's Password Manager of the Year for 3 years in a row. Top rated productivity app on the App Store. Most secure, multiple layers of security for maximum protection. Filling out forms is a breeze with patented autofill technology. Provides real-time alerts when passwords are compromised on the dark web. Store more than passwords. Store social security cards, passport photos, and more. Also great for businesses. Provides all of the features small and large businesses need, including integration with SSO systems, role-based access control, and secrets management. Get a password manager now. Get the best. Get Keeper. Start your free trial at www.get-keeper.com. That's www.get-keeper.com.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you, Keeper Security, because yes, everyone get a password manager. Make your password strong. It's very, very important.
Yes.
iCloud keychain, also not great. So
yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, iCloud keychain could also use some
Paul
love.
in the comments brings up another good point. And I agree with him. I would also like to see improvement on the spam filtering for messages and phone calls. For some reason, I must have given my phone number to somebody I shouldn't, because I am now constantly getting text messages from spam. And it's like whack-a-mole.
It's not just Luke telling you when he's going out for walks and stuff.
It's not just me. You can mark me a spam if you want, Karen. That's fine.
Yeah, no. I block each individual one, but it doesn't matter because they're always coming from different places. So it's like, it's a waste of time, but
yeah,
it is annoying. I would like to see Apple help us out with that.
Moving on from software, there are a few kind of little bit of Apple news we'd like to cover quickly. And first one coming from, I believe, Min-Chi Kuo, saying that the AirPods Pro 2 should be launching later this year, and that the AirPods 3, which just launched a few months ago, are apparently struggling.
Yeah,
so that's interesting.
We knew about AirPods Pro 2, that there's been a lot of chat that they're coming this year, probably the back half of this year, with possibly a redesign to make them look more like no stem, basically, so more like a Studio Buds or like a Beats, Studio Buds, different health applications, things like that. So the release window is probably less interesting than the context in which it was delivered, which is that Apple's AirPods 3, like you said, Apple's reportedly cut its AirPods 3 production for this quarter and the next quarter, Q2 and Q3, by more than 30% because they're struggling. They're not doing as well as Apple thought they would. And the reason that Wo-Ming Chi gives for this in terms of kind of his prediction and analysis is that by leaving AirPods 2 on the table, which are considerably cheaper, Apple's kind of product segmentation is kind of cannibalized itself. And so lots of people, as is the case, I think, certainly with the iPhone and things like that, new AirPods come out, and rather than buy the new model, everybody's buying the cheaper model, the previous generation. So Quo is suggesting that when AirPods Pro 2 come out, Apple will not make the same mistake and will not sell the previous generation of AirPods Pro. So you'll just have one model of AirPods Pro to choose from, which I think makes more sense anyway for the Pro models. But yeah, certainly interesting to hear that AirPods 3 are not doing as well as maybe Apple had liked, because they're really good. I have them, Luke, you have them, you reviewed them for iMore.
Yeah. Got 'em
I
right
think
here.
they're amazing. With spatial audio, like that was a big upgrade. And I think just the general audio overall,
Mhm.
really good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that the features that it does have, like spatial audio, are things that people can't really conceive of, but the features that it doesn't have, like noise cancellation, people understand that and they
yeah,
either want that and they're willing to
mhm.
pay it just a little bit more to get it, or they don't want it, in which case they'd rather just get the cheaper AirPods 2. So I can kind of understand why AirPods 3 isn't doing that well. And also the Beats Fit Pro came out right around the same time, and they
And
are
they're
Mhm.
much
sound
cheaper and have noise.
they're better in every regard.
Yeah.
They have everything. They basically have all the features that the AirPods 3 have plus more, and they come in really nice colors.
Yeah, this
So,
is true. Luke, did you
it
have the previous gen? Did you have AirPods 2 before you got the third generation ones? Because I didn't. These are my first AirPods.
Yeah, I had a pair of original AirPods, not the AirPods
Right.
2, of original AirPods that unfortunately went through the washer and then got wrecked after like 6 months of me owning them, which is why I kind of held off on some AirPods for a while because I was like, I'm probably just going to ruin them because I'm not always very good with my tech. But the AirPods 3 just were kind of seemed like the right fit for me, and I do love them, I really do. In my review, though, I did sort of, I kind of, I wouldn't say predicted this, but I definitely pointed out that the price point of the AirPods 3 was in a very precarious place. And that might make it a really weird buy for a lot of people
Yeah.
because the unfortunate thing is like, really, to me, Karen, I agree with the Beats comparison, but also like the AirPods Pro are so often on sale for
Yeah, they're
pretty
about the
much the
same
yeah.
same
price
price
now.
or even less, especially at third party retailers like
Mhm.
Amazon and other places. And like if you're comparing the AirPods Pro with the AirPods 3, like the AirPods Pro are going to sound better. They're also have noise cancellation. They have a little less battery life, but they also have noise cancellation. So it's not a direct comparison. They have spatial audio. They have pretty much everything you could want. They're going to fit in your ear, like most people's ears, better. If the silicone tips don't work for you, you can always try and get third party like foam tips. A lot of people say that fits your ear better and is a little more comfortable. And those aren't that expensive if you source them third party either. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought that the AirPods 3 was in this really weird price range where like
Yeah.
because they kept the AirPods 2 around, which I like because I like when technology is more accessible and affordable in that way. But like the AirPods 3 was just sort of this weird like
Did you
middle
did
child
you
that everyone always forgets about.
so do you think the AirPods 3 would have sold better if they had just started $50 cheaper?
Oh, heck yeah.
Or even just a little bit cheaper. And it's like Luke, I hadn't really, I sort of kind of took Kuo's analysis at face value. And I was like, oh yeah, you wouldn't buy the 3, you buy the 2. But actually, you're both totally right in that the AirPods Pro are more enticing because of the price point. So it doesn't even have to be even $25 or $30, just anything so that they aren't the same price because they're what, $179.
100,
And
yeah.
Luke, like you said, AirPods Pro are frequently, if not all the time, reduced to that level at Amazon
or
or
even
other
more.
places.
Like
Yeah,
we've seen on like Prime Day and like Black Friday, they've gone down even cheaper than the
yeah.
AirPods 3, which is mind blowing to think because they are better. But they are also an older
Mhm.
device, which tend to see
Yeah.
more
So I wonder if
discounts.
once Apple replaces the AirPods Pro with the AirPods Pro 2 later this year, and we presumably go back up to the original, what was it, $250, the price point for the first
Yeah,
AirPods Pro.
259, I think, 260
That's a
pretty much, yeah.
much bigger difference. And then people will be looking and say, oh, I can have the AirPods Pro 2 or these AirPods 3, and they are, vastly, whereas right now, yeah, you're choosing at the same price point. And Karen, you're completely right. You could say, oh, well, they both have spatial audio, which, is hard to say. You should buy the AirPods 3, not the AirPods 2, because they have spatial audio. Because most people will be like, what the heck is spatial audio? How does that benefit me? Do I really need that? Whereas when you're saying, well, you could buy the AirPods 3, or for the same price, you could have the Pro, and they have active noise cancellation. Everybody knows what that is. Everybody knows what the benefits are and how that will improve your your listening experience. For me personally, I don't like squishy silicon. I just think it messes with the pressure in my head, so I've never been able to really get behind those. But I think for the vast majority of people, yeah, the AirPods Pro. I wonder why I couldn't say that.
Yeah.
That's,
So
because that seems like a much more likely reason, I think.
Yeah, I mentioned this in my AirPods 3 review that, like, as much as I love them, I kind of don't fault anybody for not buying them, especially considering what the market is. It's such a competitive market these days, right? It's not like when AirPods first launched, you know, they weren't the first. They're never the first, but they were like, you know, in terms of what AirPods offer you, they were the first, right? The first like fast pairing and things like that. But now, because Apple owns Beats and they've come out with several Beats options, and now there's been several versions of AirPods, like they're sort of squishing in this like tiny little frame of prices. They're trying to squish in a lot of products, and it does seem like it's becoming problematic, which is a shame because, as I said before, I really like my AirPods 3. I think that they're quite nice. I think that, you know, if you're like, for me, when I'm using earbuds, I don't think, hey, I want these earbuds to have active noise canceling, because I don't use them in situations where I feel like I want active noise canceling. I'm going to use something like this if I want active noise canceling. You know what I mean? That's really going to give you like the best kind of experience.
The other thing as well is that active noise, good noise, is much cheaper now to get noise canceling. I use I reviewed the Nothing, like the earbuds, you know, they're really funky with the transparent and everything like that. They're incredible. They sound worse than AirPods, right? Because they're $100 and they have noise canceling, but like they're brilliant. They've got amazing touch controls, and I think the lower end earbud market is also a lot better now, where again, if those AirPods 2, they're what, $110, $15, you probably get them for $100 in some places. But yeah, you could buy a pair of Nothing earbuds new for the same price, and you get the noise cancellation and the silicon, which actually with those ones I tend to manage better. But
third-party earbuds have gotten vastly better in the last couple of years. It used to be, if you spent under $200, you would get garbage. You know, just garbage. And now for under $100, you can get really, really nice quality earbuds with noise canceling.
Quickly, we're running out of time here, but another Apple sort of news / rumor we want to, or I guess it's more news than a rumor. Apparently, references to Apple Classical have appeared in the iOS 15.5 betas. We've been hearing about this for a while. Apple Classical is essentially going to be a classical music streaming service. And it was, it's because Apple bought out another company, correct?
Yeah, Prime Phonic. Last year. So yeah, we, like you said, they obviously bought that company with a purpose. And I think the references have popped up before, but yeah, Apple definitely has. There's a list in the new beta code of descriptions. It's like, open this in the new app designed for classical music. So I would assume that the classical music app will make a lot of use of spatial audio, because, you know, classical music, especially, you know, from big orchestras, you can really kind of maximize the listening experience by using spatial audio. Different
think of like the 1812
sort of
overture with the cannons and
and there's that. Plus, I imagine there will be quite a big push for Apple's lossless audio and probably the digital master stuff for older works as well. But I think there will probably be it's quite a niche thing, but it's there will be a market for people who want to listen to very high fidelity classical music. And I wonder if there are people as well who only want to listen to classical music, and they might be able to pay like so this is a separate app, but I wonder if there'll be a separate subscription or like a bolt onto Apple Music, so people who only want classical music, which I assume there are a number, will be able to have classical music and not feel like they're paying $10 for all of the music when they could pay $5 for just the music they want to listen to. But yeah, it's pretty cool. We don't have a timeline or anything like that, so this could be next month or WWDC or the end of the year or later. So we'll just see what happens.
I would imagine it would coincide with the release of AirPods Pro Two.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I could totally see that. It's,
Need some Richard Wagner in your ANC headphones.
Yeah.
It'll
Zimmer,
be.
that would count as classical music, right? That was probably the only.
I don't know. That's just like orchestra music. I don't know if that's necessarily classical. It depends. I don't actually know what defines the genre, to be honest. If somebody does, let us know. And let us know if you're looking forward to Apple Classical. Because, it is potentially a bit more niche than pop music, but it definitely is a style of music that a lot of people appreciate and people study. Like there's, people have PhDs in classical music. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm surprised Apple's going that direction because, Apple's events are always very sort of music fashion forward, if that makes any sense. Like
What if they did
cutting
it?
edge, I guess.
What if they did it for all of the genres? What if you could just subscribe to like
Oh my gosh.
Apple grunge or Apple speed metal or
Apple hip hop.
Please no.
No, I think classical stands out as like it's like you have classical and then all of the music. Like it does make sense. I think so.
Let's not manifest that reality right now. Let's just not keep that out of our mouths for right now. All right, our little fun segment's going to be a bit different this week. We're going to talk about something that's not 100% Apple related, but people use Twitter on their Apple devices, right? So we found out this week that Twitter is actually working on an edit button, which is something that I've wanted for 5 billion years since I joined Apple, or since I joined Twitter in like 2013. So there's a lot of interesting context in this. We don't have time to do a super deep dive into it, but what are your thoughts, people? What do you think about Twitter adding an edit button?
I think it's very convenient that Twitter has decided it's been working on edit button for over a year. The week Elon Musk bought like a 9% stake in the country and is now on the board in the company, and is now on the board, and he is a vocal proponent of the edit button. I have huge. I don't know. I probably agree with Luke in that I think Twitter has a problem with tweets that have typos in them that need to be corrected, right? I think that's why most people would like an edit button, because you send out a tweet and maybe it starts doing well, it gets some good engagement, and then you look and you're like, oh, I've spelt that word wrong, or there's some sort of typo that changes the meaning of the tweet or makes you just look like a total dummy, and I wish I could just edit it, but now you have to delete the tweet and start again, and then it loses the engagement and the initial push or whatever. Certainly like with iMore's Twitter and stuff like that, it's a thing. But obviously there has to be some way to mark that a tweet has been edited, right? Because we discussed this kind of off air in the show prep. Like I couldn't tweet like I like kittens and Karen retweets it, and then I change my tweet so it's like I hate kittens or whatever, or like I like to punch kittens or who knows. There's so many opportunities for abuse, because of the way people interact with tweets and the way they spread them and share them, or even just like them or comment underneath them. So we're very interested to see how this will be implemented, but I'm quite concerned, like, because Twitter is not like the most like savory forum for public discourse and stuff. I assume people will find a way to use this to their advantage and to possibly other people's disadvantage. So we'll see.
Yeah, there are a lot of scenarios I could imagine that would be very bad if somebody changed a tweet after it had been retweeted and quoted and all of that. I mean, celebrities have been canceled for liking tweets that were, inappropriate or, not cool, whatever. So imagine, if you like a tweet and or retweet a tweet and it gets changed and it completely changes the meaning of the tweet and no longer reflects what you wanted to agree with at all.
There's so many parameters, aren't there? It's, how much of the tweet can you change? Can you change everything, or can you only make spelling corrections, or how does that work? And how long after tweeting a tweet can you change it? Because Twitter Blue has the undo tweet, right? And so I think there's a 30-second time limit you have to. You see a tweet, you can undo it, but will it be 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour, a day? Can you edit tweets that you made 10 years ago or whatever? And how does this affect, there are public officials and, state entities and stuff on Twitter and all that sort of thing. So there are just so many variables. Like, I can't not see this being some sort of disaster somewhere.
Like your kitten example, like let's say you tweeted, I love
I
kittens,
don't like
and
to
I
punch
retweeted
kittens,
it.
by the way. Like, let's be.
Yeah, I'm just trying to steer clear of something that could be an actual controversy.
Yeah.
And let's say you change it to I like to punch kittens, and so it said that in my retweet, even if it said this tweet was edited, like you don't know, like nobody knows what it was edited to say. Like, well, who cares if you change the spelling of a word?
Yeah.
It's still a terrible sentiment.
Maybe it said I love to punch kittens, and now it says I like to. It's still, abhorrent, like you said. There's,
yeah, exactly.
Unless you can click and see the original tweet, and then it's and you said about Twitter. There is an aspect as well, because and Elon Musk said this. That he thinks I don't agree. He thinks Twitter is a public forum, but it's a place where people are held to account. Right? We've had presidents have Twitter and world leaders and various things like that. So there has to be the level of accountability, for if a politician tweets, something offensive, or someone running for office, they've tweeted something offensive or questionable, like in their past, and can they go back and edit that? And like, is there a public record? And how does all of that get viewed? So it's a huge kind of words. The biggest thing for me is I think, which means I probably never get to use the edit button anyway, is that Twitter is testing this for Twitter Blue. And I'm pretty sure that Twitter will make the edit button a paid feature of Twitter Blue. Like how we all wanted to listen to YouTube with our phones locked and just press the play button. So YouTube turned it into like an entire monetizable service rather than just give us the feature. So
I think we don't have a lot of time, but I'll give two quick final thoughts that are maybe in contrast of what you think. I want an edit button, and I don't think it's a big deal because of three reasons. One, almost every other social media platform you can edit your posts, and that hasn't really been a big giant problem in other ways. Now, of course, Twitter is a bit unique in terms of like discussion and more kind of political, I guess, happens there than perhaps on your Instagrams or your Facebooks, but it's still a point worth mentioning. Second, I definitely think they'll add some sort of like verbiage that says when a tweet is edited. I know they might, that doesn't tell you what it is. But third, the internet's pretty quick, and almost anybody who's ever tweeted anything that people deem problematic or even funny or whatever, it's screenshotted the minute it goes up. Somebody has it in their folders. And I don't know. I feel like I feel like this isn't a huge deal. I don't think people are really going to be able to like tweet something and then purposely change it and make people look, foolish for retweeting it or whatever. I think it'll be pretty obvious when like, if it has a little marker that says the tweet's been edited, and then you can go back and, maybe they give you a note. Maybe here's a quick thought on top of my head. Maybe if you retweet something and it gets edited, maybe you get a notification that says this tweet you retweeted has just been edited.
Would you
perhaps
like to withdraw your
way,
endorsement? Yeah.
Right. So I don't know.
Would you pay for it, Luke? Would you, if it was a Twitter Blue, would you, because you don't have Twitter Blue.
I don't have Twitter Blue because it
would you join for an edit button?
Worth it? Honestly, I might. I want an edit button on Twitter so bad, because when I don't edit myself, I sound ridiculous. And right now I kind of I've separated my Twitters into like a more personal one and a work one. On my personal one, I've kind of gotten I don't really care if my tweets are misspelled, because like people get the gist of what I'm going for. Because I'm lazy more than anything. And I don't want to delete tweets all the time and have other people, have to see them more than once. So, but I think I don't like making mistakes. I like fixing typos if I can. So it might compel me to definitely pay for.
Plus, typos generate engagement, like Rene Ritchie always says. So.
All right, that has brought us to the end of our show. Thank you, everyone who's following along with us live, watching us on YouTube, or just listening to us. We really appreciate you. Thank you for all the comments. It's really great. Anyone who's listening later, either watching on YouTube later or listening in their podcatcher of choice, thank you so much for listening. We love doing this with you. If anybody at all has any questions or comments about the show or about WWDC, or just like you have anything we talked about today, you want to let us know what you feel about the Twitter edit button, you can definitely tweet us at iMore on Twitter to talk to us about the Twitter edit button if you want, and make it a little meta. Thank you, Karen and Stephen, as always, for joining me. And thank you, Jim Metzendorf, our audio expert, who is always making us sound so great. One quick announcement I meant to make at the beginning of the show and kind of forgot. Next week there's not going to be an iMore show, unfortunately. It is Good Friday, which for several of us is a holiday, but also Karen is celebrating. What are you celebrating again, Karen? I'm so bad with other religion holidays. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's Passover for our Jewish friends.
Yes, totally. So anyone who's celebrating Easter or celebrating Passover, have a great long weekend. I hope you have a great time with friends and family. And we will see you again, not next week, but the week after. Until then.
Enter our giveaway, Grid Studio. 1 week left, 5 prizes. Link in the description.
Yes. Do that. Enter our giveaway. So until 2 weeks from now, we will see you later. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.
Okay. Are we off air?
Nope.
Nope.